Beloved, precious students of life, beloved, precious roses, Akasha is with you through the life stream of your messenger, and I welcome each of you, your presence here this evening, and I extend my love to the student body that just keeps expanding in so many countries of the world. Last October 2014, we all celebrated the 20th anniversary of my dispensation of the return of the Mother's presence to the earth through the rose-pink flames of divine love, will, and grace. Over 7,000 students have gathered through into the Academy in these 20 years. This has been a year of transition in preparing for the greatest transformation in your lives, and a transformation that will connect with every new student coming in and so quickly be that same transformation that begins to occur in their own lives. Such is the magic of life. This year, we introduced, after speaking of the importance of attaining a momentum in the spiritual activity of your life and entering the outer activity, issuing mighty decrees as you did this evening, entering into the sacred fire, releasing sacred fire mantras to draw that sacred fire to you. Each of you have gained your own unique, and you have gained the collective momentum of this student body in ensuring that intervention from your own higher intelligence, from your own higher presence, an intervention from Earth's spiritual family that the mass of the people, for the most part, tragically and unfortunately, do not know or do not accept even exists. It is this one activity, the tragic fostering of the tree of knowledge of good and evil upon religious congregations in this world, that have not allowed the peoples of earth to fully awaken to their divinity, accept that divinity, and realize that the earth, like all systems of worlds, has many stratospheres, dimensional realities, and in those dimensional realities are magnificent beings of light and love. Some of those beings of light and love were individuals like yourselves, over thousands and tens of thousands or millions of years past, who completed the wheel of reincarnation, successfully awakened to higher truths, applied those higher truths, and gained their victory in completing their ascension from this world, ascending up into their glorious God presence, becoming members of the universal ascended host to every system of worlds. Now things are changing. Your academy is ready. New offices, new technical systems, new websites, and all of you are ready for the experience. The experience. The promise that is revealed, that personal and direct contact with God is available in the silence of a moment. And when you achieve that silence, it is not only that you have taught yourself how to suspend thoughts, you suspend the continuum of mass consciousness that registers time and space. And as all of that is suspended, and you are taught to, through the silence, to enter deeply inside your entire consciousness, you have unlocked the mystery through the power of your effort and personal experience. You have given justice to one of the great truths spoken by Jesus the Christ. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all things will be added unto you. His beloved John inquires, where? Tell me, great master, where is this kingdom of God? It's inside you, John. And through the years of your study and your willingness to set aside and empty your minds and feelings of the treacherous tree of knowledge of good and evil, and be taught and remembered once again of the tree of life, that when that tree of life can begin to express through your consciousness is a presence that knows and expresses a state of absolute perfection. As one makes contact with that in the holy silence, and it begins to flow out into your daily consciousness, into your minds, your bodies, your feelings, and flows out into your world. Like every initiate past, you observe change, correction, healing, an increase of supply, an increase in joy, an increase in your divinity, an increase in your creativity. And it is here that I encourage each of you, do not fall into the trap. Do not believe as suddenly you experience a momentum of improvements in every activity of your life. Do not fall prey to believing that God is doing something special for you, that God is healing you. Rather, it is you. It is you by your awakening. It is you by your efforts that you have sought this kingdom. And in your studies, you have come to realize that it is right there at the center of your consciousness. It's been there all along. And in your teachings, in your processing, in your letting go, and all the efforts that you made, piece by piece, you have been undoing the wall that has kept you from experiencing your inner consciousness. And you know, precious hearts, that I do not use, nor do I care for, the words subconscious or unconscious, because in truth, those terms are part of mortal mind that has been programmed into believing in good and evil. You have come to understand that your awakening, your letting go, your rising up into your true divinity is knocking down piece by piece the structure that holds a man-made religious belief that has fostered the book of knowledge of good and evil. Piece by piece, you've been knocking that down. You have been reprogramming by allowing yourself to remember truths that we love to offer to each of you. It has been a journey that may even be more than just this lifetime. You may have been going at this for several lifetimes. Because until the God word becomes a friendly word, a word that you can use. And I say that because you know that by the millions and tens of millions, and even more so today, people are leaving their churches, their mosques, their temples, their synagogues by record numbers. And there are many reasons that they do. And tragically, when many people do leave their religions or their churches because it's not working for them anymore, they often take on a sour appetite, a sour attitude, that's the word, to the God word, or a sour attitude to beings out of which religions were formed around their lives. I've always loved to remind you, precious hearts, that you can have church with Jesus inside you. And I've gone the length reminding you that Jesus was not a Catholic, nor was Mother Mary, that they were Hebrews. In fact, they were Essenes. And it's taken a long time for God to become a friendly in your consciousness. And this required you backing out of religion, yet seeking a science of truth, and often that science of truth made you inquire into what is known as the laws of metaphysics. Laws of metaphysics that expand to you an understanding of consciousness. That understanding invites each of you to a place where there's no resistance because you've studied. When you hear God is consciousness is I, or consciousness is God is I, or I is God is consciousness, or I is consciousness or God. You can rearrange those words any way you so choose, and it's the truth. And when you realize this, that deep realization and your awakening leads you to a place that there has been something that has circumvented your own inner consciousness. There has been something that has placed a wall, a barrier. You have not had access to your full consciousness, and what blocked you was a hereditary, because it was passed down to you. It was passed down from parents and grandparents. And what about the parents you had in your previous life and their grandparents? And it was passed down to you. And it is so historic that the mental, the emotional, and the physical bodies that people use have this long-standing belief system. And it is the various beliefs that people have that literally have blocked people from experiencing their entire consciousness. And mortal mind and pseudosciences come up with words such as the unconscious, the subconscious. Today, students are writing letters to the academy to the director, to the messengers, and they are experiencing what we began to teach you in getting into that silence, suspending thoughts to make contact. Because only by the experience and what happens after the experience are you certain that we are telling you the truth. And I introduce two means that you could accomplish this. 7 sacred moments, a 7-minute treatment, or the practitioner's treatment that can go on as long as you so desire it to be. The fundamental, especially when you've done a lot of processing, you've done a lot of letting go, you've healed your emotional bodies, you are ready, you are thirsty for greater freedoms of all kinds in your life. Your study leads to practice, and then you lean on that practice. You lean on that study. You let go. You have a change of mind. You have a change of heart. You have new healthy attitudes. And in all your studying, you have discovered the 5 human habits that will ensure a human being never, ever has their entire freedom. And the mass of the people don't even know this. Today, there's a conscience that is growing in the mass, so there's some awareness. But you know because you came to class, you studied, you accepted the truth. We said to you, the worst habits that humans engage in is criticism, condemnation, judgment, blame, and gossip. For years I encouraged you. I asked you, just try it. Just try refraining. Just try suspending that activity, that outer activity. And just try to do it long enough. Give it 3, 4, 5 months. And you will notice how much lighter that you feel. To support this, over years, we offered you an intimate understanding of the mental body, of the mind. We offered you an intimate understanding of your emotional body and how everything going on in your mind, everything going on in your emotional body, and then there's your sight. Every image that you are holding in your mind or seeing, that these 3 activities, sight, mind, and emotion, feeling, is registering on your physical body and your physical life. We have sought to make sure that you have understanding, that you value what we are teaching you, and that we are teaching you in a way that if you apply these things, soon you start to experience a lot of changes in your life. Today, you know, precious hearts, that if you hold, we talked a lot about forgiveness. And we had to get down to the science of how your emotional body, how that interacts with your physical body. That if you have something inside you that is unforgiven, and your attitude is, I can't forgive that person's crime is just unforgivable. Well, the worst tragedy that unfolds is what you hold unforgiven that becomes an emotion that starts building in your own emotional body. And so when you hear these things, as you have over the years, then you apply them. And precious hearts, everything is given. Mother Mary has come to you and she has said, I know. She has said, I know how painful things can be in your world. I was there. And I know that sometimes there are those crimes that you feel you will never forgive that person. And who better than Mother Mary? What mother has gone through the torture for 3 days that she went through? And then she came to the student body a few years ago and she said, I understand. I was there. And my son came to me after his ascension and he said, Mother, I will never be able to lift you into your freedom until you forgive those ones. Those who had done the harm upon Jesus. And Mary, being quite illumined since Jesus' ascension, because he would commune with her often, and Mary would say very honestly to her son, who was the ascended Jesus Christ, I can't. I know I'm supposed to. I know that you have gone on into the glory, son, but I can't. And Jesus said to Mary, Mother, I have the power to do it. Mary says to Jesus, then do it. No, Mother, you can't tell me to. You have to ask me to forgive those on behalf of you. So Mother Mary made right, and she went to her son and said, all right. In my all honesty, I acknowledge I'm not there yet. I can't do it. I know I'm supposed to, son, so I'm asking you, forgive them on my behalf. In moments, it was done. And do you know, precious hearts, this little story I'm sharing with you, it didn't happen in the next few months. It didn't happen in the next few years where Mother Mary and her mother and some of the disciples migrated up into Turkey where Mother Mary remained her life. It didn't happen in the next few years. This happened towards the end of her life. Because her son knew it's time to give my mother her freedom. She's carried this long enough, even though I've asked her 1,000 times to let it go. And when Jesus forgave those on Mother Mary's behalf, within 24 hours, Mother Mary was given her ascension, just like Jesus the Christ. The power of forgiveness. And so again, this is one of the things that each of you have come to know. Because if you hold something unforgiven, it'll fester in your emotional body and it will do more damage to your own emotional body. And even more damage than maybe the damage of the event that required forgiveness. So important. And I'm just reminiscing with you tonight because you have come a long way. We had a remarkable weekend here in the classes. And what began in one of the classes was a demonstration of students that I called up here with me. And the rest of the students I opened to be receptive. And then I assisted the students that came up with me in releasing a radiation of God energy through them to the blessed students. You are all coming to understand that before a miracle becomes substantial in terms of form, that the energetics, the vibration, the radiation that produces miracles, that radiation you must become familiar with. Open and receive. If you begin to receive the energetic, vibrational radiation that is the source, the intelligence of miracles, whether the miracle is produced by someone in your world, by Jesus the Christ, an angel, there has to be an intelligence that is acting upon energy that produces a vibration, and that vibration must have a radiation of life force. I promised we would begin to demonstrate these. This began this weekend past. This autumn, the idea is to set this student body up so that every student is having the most amazing experiences because you are entering the practitioner's treatment. You are coming to love that treatment, how you feel, the changes that you are observing in your lives, and you love it so much that you come to rearrange your day, you rearrange your work, because it is so important to you to give, to enter into the practitioner's treatment 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, anywhere from 10, 15 to 20 minutes. And this is where everything comes together. All your years of training, whether your years of training and study were with the academy, or whether you've been awakening on some other path, or whether you just awakened yesterday, I made a promise. And only a mother's presence can make this promise, and especially depending on where that mother comes from. And that promise that I would make, because this student body is soon to make a demonstration of such powerful miracles that is going to turn the attention of the world upon this student body. And you must be prepared on every single level of your being. And that preparation requires each of you to bridge your daily thinking mind with your higher intelligent mind that we call the Christ mind. That's why I taught you and gave you the 7 sacred moments. As that happens, you will find that there is a higher intelligence that is expressing through your minds more and more as you go on about your day. You will find that instantly there is guidance and solutions that just come into your awareness because you have bridged your daily thinking mind with your higher intelligence that we call your Christ mind. That bridge must be formed. And in the passage of months or only 1 or 2 years, the bridge disappears. And there is no longer a daily thinking mind and a higher Christ mind. The two become one. Now, while that is happening, every one of you can transform every activity that is going on in your lives through the practitioner's treatment. Now, precious hearts, the letters continue to pour in. Maybe not students by the thousands yet, maybe not students by the hundreds, but students by the 10, 20, 30 who have succeeded in getting into the practitioner's treatment, suspending their thoughts, being very still. This is not meditation. This is far beyond it. This is a complete suspension of mortal mind with the known truth. It is in the sacred stillness. It is in the silence of a moment that contact, personal contact, and experience with God is possible. You come to appreciate all your study. Do you think if you had not cleared from your mind the religious beliefs in God, that God is a judgmental God, God is an abusing God, God says no, God doesn't answer prayers, do you think that if you had not gone through the spiritual education, if you had not cleared those concepts from your mind, do you think you would have any success in suspending the thought process and making contact with what exists at the center of your consciousness? No, not at all. In fact, some of you long ago would have wanted to have nothing to do with that God. These things must be rewarded in acknowledgement. Because, precious hearts, as new, and you've heard me say this before, as new students come in, they'll talk to you in the breaks, they'll communicate with you, and if they like what they hear and they come back again, they're going to be talking to you, and I promised. Yeah, you worked 20 years for this education, this spiritual awakening, but guess what? If someone new comes in and their intuition say, there's something here for me, I need to come back. And if they decide, I can create a spiritual path here, then all the work that you have done will become theirs. All your accomplishments, all your spiritual growths, all your letting go will be given them. And so, the sacredness of the practitioner's treatment. Thought is suspended. 5, 6, 7 minutes. And you feel this alchemical change and transformation. You feel energies. Your eyes begin to be filled with light. Such single-minded focus before you went into the treatment. Personal and direct consciousness with God is available in the silence of the moment. You're in there. You've suspended thoughts. And then what happens? Well, you have the education. You know God is a presence that knows only perfection. So when you make contact with that presence that exists at the center of your consciousness, that presence begins to unfold in those regions of your consciousness that were formerly filled with mortal mind's beliefs. All of those are knocked down, and that presence begins to unfold. As it unfolds through your consciousness, if you come back several times a day, you come back each day, that presence begins to unfold in your health, in your body, and it just keeps unfolding. And everyone in your consciousness is impacted by it. Your work is impacted by it. Everything starts taking on great correction. There is a perfecting activity that is unfolding. Why on earth would not every single human being in this world not desire that? I will tell you why. Because their beliefs and their emotions are in the way. That's why they wouldn't accept it. And if a student says, oh, that's too much, that's overwhelming, that's too much work, that's not their Christ mind speaking. That's their mortal mind that's speaking. So, I know what has to happen. I know that I need one of you, I need two of you, I need three of you to get in to that practitioner's treatment. You have completely suspended thoughts. You have accessed the inner fields of consciousness, where there abides a presence that knows only perfection. That presence is unfolding through you. It's tangible. It's real. Everything in your outer consciousness is being impacted. Everyone can feel it. And there comes that time, if I've got three of you, two of you, one of you, and you are in the experience, God is flowing through your outer consciousness, then all of a sudden, the entire rest of the student body are experiencing healings, are experiencing opportunities, are experiencing lack turned into supply, and all of that is happening automatically. That is my goal before the end of this year. And I ask you, who is ready? Precious heart, whether you are one that have come to class week after week or someone that is here for the first time, you just think of those who travel around the world. They hear of a mystic, they hear of a prophet, they hear of a John of God, and tens of thousands of people to travel to see the mystic, or to be in the presence of the mystic, hoping, desiring that their life might be touched, changed, healed, improved by being in the presence of the mystic. Well, there's nothing really mystical about God. If you break it down, God is consciousness and is a presence that knows only perfection. And that presence has seldom had an opportunity to come into this world. Isn't that amazing? You're approaching 7 billion life streams in this world. Every life stream, every person has life beating their heart. That life is God. Except for that super electron, that atom Cadmium cell that's beating the heart, that's life. But so many people have a hard time putting God equals life. Life equals God. The congregations of this world have put God on such a pedestal that God is not available. And how many have cried and cried when learning, when discovering that every day when they look in the mirror, they are looking at the heart of God, individualized. Of course, Christians would say heresy. There is only one. And that will ensure. Isn't it amazing that something initiated by Rome 1,700 years ago, 1,700 years ago, this is when it started. When Constantinople gave the instruction, once all the transcripts, once all the ancient scrolls had been gathered together to form what would eventually be a Bible, and the scribes were told to remove anything from the writings of Jesus' life that suggests that his life was intended to be what you could become. I have often wished that the world would be made to see the truth. I've often desired that great masters like Lord Maitreya or Saint Germain go into the etheric records and show the people of the world the truth. When under Constantinople's authority in Rome, he instructed the early scribes to make sure that there were enough changes in the ancient scrolls that would become the Bible. The instruction was, make sure no one has the means to become Christ. As far as Rome's attitude was, one is quite enough. So the writings were changed and altered. Lovely, beautiful to read the New Testament. But all the means to become God actualized, all removed. It's very, very interesting. And you now have, precious hearts, the ability. You have the ability, and it's going to come forward in you so quickly. I said to this messenger 20 years ago, there will be no advertising of this work, no hard sell. You're not going to find magazines promoting events. This is all going to be word of mouth. Because I know what word of mouth, that's a correct phrase, is it? Yes. What it can do. If you have a prophet in town and word quickly spreads that people are experiencing all sorts of miracles in their lives, and then though the individuals around the prophet organize renting a facility such as, what is one of your large stadium? And word goes out that the prophet is going to appear at the stadium. Do you think that stadium would get filled? Yes. Precious hearts, I must keep encouraging you. You are on the verge of doing and fulfilling the reason why you came to the earth in the first place. And that is to be the living incarnation of God, because God sent you. And your life is really God's life. Go ahead and ask the question. Does that mean I don't have any life of my own? Well, that's an interesting question. Jesus answered it this way: I and the Father are one. That was the accomplishment. Once it was all done. I and the Father are one. I and the Mother are one. I and the consciousness of life are one. The very life that beats my heart is God's life. Is there a greater? Is there an infinite? Yes. And I am the individualization of that infinite. There must, and there always is, and must always be. It's the divine plan of our universe. It exists this way. There must always be realizations. And once the realization registers, it is always followed by actualization. But that realization must not sit as an intellectual showpiece. It must move into a deeper conviction. It must move into your feeling side of life. You were asked by a son many years ago to do something that you thought was extraordinary. You thought, a son doesn't know what he's talking about. When a son invited you to try living without opinions. What? Living without opinions? Well, you may be an ascended master, but you're right crazy, some of you thought. But many of you have done it. Many of you still engage it. It's all right. But he wanted to make sure that one day there would be a space inside you where truth could come in. And he knew that as long as you had heavy opinions in the mental, emotional body, that would create a space filled where truth could not come in. It's a lot more joyful to know something than to believe something or to have an opinion about something. You know how easy it is for people to discredit opinions. People will say, well, that's your opinion. And it can be discredited in the next moment. It's all been about lighten the load, make yourself an empty vessel so that the greater truths can come into your awareness and then express through you. As those greater truths come into your awareness through your study, then the realizations come. Once the realizations come and they remain part of your consciousness long enough, then consciousness is very demanding. Do you know that anything that consciousness holds in itself as a non-physical entity that is individualized or infinite, that consciousness, according to the power of the attention of the user of that consciousness, demands physical manifestation. Anywhere throughout this universe, even in the varying types of different physical galaxies, consciousness always requires someone to be steering it, to be directing it. Do I choose to move my attention here? Do I choose to move my attention over there? Do I choose to do something different? You are using consciousness. But I'll tell you something about the nature of consciousness. When you rest your consciousness on some subject, on something, and if that gets emotionally charged, your own consciousness demands its manifestation. Many times, the great ascended master, Saint Germain, an ascended master who has made so many appearances in this world, would suddenly appear before an individual, maybe not even a student. Go back a few centuries in which the great Saint Germain would appear before King Louis, before Elizabeth I. And they would often say, well, I did not call you. And Saint Germain would say, everything that's taking place inside your consciousness has demanded me to come to you. Your consciousness, how you're using it. And consciousness can soar. And when consciousness soars to become everything, consciousness is mind, feeling, sight, intelligence. If your consciousness, if you have a feeling about something, why have some initiates surged past other initiates who've been studying and training 80, 90 years? Why does all of a sudden someone come along and just surge right past them? Because in their consciousness, in the awareness, which is the usage of their consciousness, they became aware of their desire to become everything. Out in mass consciousness, there are some people, because everyone's awakening to some degree, that could gather some fathoming of what that means. But there's still too many connotations and associations. What does that mean? If all of a sudden you wake up tomorrow and imagine that you are not even awakened yet, but you have this desire, it's right there as soon as you awaken in the morning, and it's all over you. It's inside you, you're feeling it, you're thinking it, and you have this desire suddenly to become everything. It's so strong as an impulse, a prompting, an awareness. And it doesn't leave you alone. It goes with you. You go off to work or to do your errands, and it just stays with you. And you can actually examine yourself. Did I dream this? Was there some thought that preceded this? Where is this coming from? But it won't leave you. In fact, it parks itself right in the center of your daily mind. The desire to become everything. But imagine you haven't been to a mystery school yet. You haven't had a spiritual education yet. You haven't had some prophet, some teacher, some ascended master, some angel say to you upon your inquiry, what is everything? And the master responds to you, my goodness, everything is your soul. Everything is source. But wait a minute, source of what? Source of genius. And that source of genius, it has intelligence, it has creativity, it has every faculty of beingness. It has endless sight, endless hearing. What is everything? The soul. If you could reach into your soul, it is the womb of the Heavenly Mother's presence. If you could reach into that, if you could drink of that wellspring of your soul, that genius of your soul would flow into your outer self. And from out of your outer self, which is made up of your body, your mind, your feelings, your faculties, it would flow into everything you put your attention to. And everything you gazed upon, everything you looked upon, would instantly become perfect. You have seen through one the power of the Christ. Now that's the masculine principle of God. That's the mind. You've come a long way in understanding Jesus, the Christ. The Christ is not a person, it's a state of consciousness. It is the ultimate state of mental consciousness. It is the ultimate, most beautiful mind in the universe. That state of consciousness has a label. It has a name to it. It's called the Christ. And it is a blazing light. And if it came full on into this world, and the people of the outer world were not prepared to have their sight raised gently, the full power of the blazing light of endless, divine, beautiful mind would cause the people's sight to go blind in an instant. That is how powerful and strong that light is. And I just shared you that you will know how much of that light Jesus tempered down. Because when you have access to it, when you make yourself an instrument for it, you get to govern it. You get to regulate it. You get to direct how much of it is coming through, how much of it is projecting out. That's the light that came into the world, and a light that eventually will guide everyone home. But what is now coming to the world is the greater. This universe is not just a masculine principled universe. It is fully balanced by a feminine principle universe. And that balance is made up. That feminine principle of the universe is the heart and the soul. God, goddess, all that is. God, the universal mind. Goddess, the universal heart, soul. Put together, all that is. Everything. Without using your mind and the power of choice, you can wake up tomorrow and you can have a strong sudden impulse and that desire to become everything. Many have been given a prompting. Many have been given an inner direction. But whatever that inner direction or prompting is, it will go nowhere without a person using their mind to say, I'm going to go after that. So, this is where you get into very interesting conversation. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first, the father principle, the mind that said, let there be light, 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 and a universe unfolds? Or the mother principle that is the love that fulfills everything the father principle, the mind, decrees? We have hinted, and by your own experience, every one of you who are in a feminine garment, do you have a mind? Yes. Of course you do. Is it possible that the feminine principle of our universe, the heart soul of our universe, has a mind? Yes. Of course. But mind knows that in this universe, this is not a thought universe. This is not a mental universe. This is a physical universe. And that requires the principle that can deliver into physical manifestation all that the mind conceives. Maybe the mind of the mother realized she required an objective mind outside of herself to decree, so then she, with the power of love, mind conceives. What you feel makes real. The delivery, the mind can conceive, but the delivery comes from the feminine principle into physical manifestation. Why did the Master Jesus, and this is important for you to keep in your attention, why did he say, there are those who are coming after? Fortunately, the scribes left enough in the original scrolls as that got translated into the new Bible. Why did he say, there are those who come after me, and their works are much greater than my own, much greater. They are so great that they will inherit the earth. To inherit is to have control over, to make sure things go right. Because Jesus knew that his time was to deliver the Christ, reveal to the world the higher mind, the power of the Godfather energy. The world 2,000 years ago, and only just now, just beginning, was not in a position to accept any aspect of divinity or deity in the feminine equation. Even now you have countries today in which women are considered second-class citizen. This has been going on for tens of thousands of years. If the sinister force that was in the world and the black magicians that were in the world 2,000 years ago, if they picked up any energy from this boy child that he would be bringing to the world, the Heavenly Mother's presence, that child would have never made 3 years old. Like every previous attempt for the Heavenly Mother's presence to incarnate on this planet, every attempt has failed. Those taking on feminine embodiments to embody the Mother's presence did not make it past 3 years. The sinister force sought them out and destroyed them. Why? Because the Heavenly Mother's presence, which is love, is fulfillment. And that would have shut off the sinister force that's been in this world wrecking things, and would have given people the heart, the soul, and the power of their feelings to fulfill their lives. And if you have people fulfilling their lives, it's very difficult to control them in ways that you want to. So the Master Jesus knew that there was going to be one difference in those who would come after him. That they would not only access and resurrect their minds into the higher Christ mind, but they would also access the hierarchy of the feeling mother side of life. That those people would access the hierarchy of the feeling principle of life. In your world, it starts with your feeling body. Getting it healed, getting it cleaned up, clearing yourself of the festering cesspool of the emotions of fear, etc. and lighting up your feeling body with beautiful feelings and qualities. And then rising up into the heart, restoring your heart to the spiritual heart it once was. For all of you, this has been accomplished. And what is next? Everything. Receiving the key to the door to everything. Many have asked. In India, over the last 3,000 years, I can tell you 37 swamis who came to know what was beyond that door were asked by their students, Master, what is beyond the door to everything? And in their various languages that they use, the translation of their response, was one word. And that word spoken in English, the masters would speak unspeakable. Unspeakable. And only now are some of the people finally ready. You now know what is beyond the door to everything. It's your soul. It's the source of genius. It's the power that fulfills everything your Christ mind dares to conceive. But when everything goes so terribly wrong and you've turned yourselves upside down and you've made yourself something you were never intended to be, you were never intended to be a limited human race. You are, by those who live out there in the universe, you're not called, in your present condition, you're referred to as the humans. But those beings that live in higher systems of worlds and in other planetary systems, they often too address you by your right name as a race of beings. You are the I am race. They know I am is the name of God. They know I am is God in action. They call you the I am race because they know what the people of earth have forgotten, that you are creator beings. And now I understand there are even handy little phrases such as children of the lesser God. Well, the lesser God is what the people of earth have made themselves. When the world can clean up their appetite for horrifying beliefs that have created such terrifying dysfunction, because those beliefs were handed down to children and to children and to children, and then children come along and they know that in their heart of heart that what their parents are trying to make them do is not right. But the parent forces and forces, and the child is raised into an adult and becomes dysfunctional. You would be dismayed if I could pull the veil on all sociopaths that have been in your world and the growing number of sociopaths that police departments, human resources, psychologists are all aware of, and the growing number of harm that is coming from those sociopaths. If I could pull the veil on those people and go back in time, go right back to their birth and their opening years, And there's no pointing fingers because parents always do their best, even when their best is their worst. If parents are doing their worst, they have no ability to do better, even though you could say, well, you know better. They may know better, but are they doing better? Often not, because some force is working upon them. So there's never any judgment. It simply is what it is. And therefore a human race waits to be rescued. That's why today there are so many spiritual groups, by the hundreds, that are growing everywhere. People are thirsty. People are looking for truth. And while they're doing that, people are getting frightened because more and more governments are getting out of control. The economy is getting out of control. But there's something else that's happening. As the poison of long wars is leaving this world, of World War I and World War II, there have always been lesser wars. But I can tell you, precious hearts, the poison of World War I and the smell of death of that war and World War II, without intervention from those who came from the stars, the pressure of those millions of dead bodies in mass graves would have acted back upon the mental and emotional people, and for a long time it did. There again is a tragedy. The people of earth just are not aware of the intervention. And those who are aware either have to huddle together in spiritual groups or huddle together in a new movement that the internet has been an instrument, a tool, an underground movement. People who are involved in bringing to life conspiracy theories, people who are involved in protecting themselves of potential danger for governments, people who are involved in groups who are arming to protect themselves from coming chaos. And while all of this is going on, in all these varying activities, there is something else that's growing, and that's the heart of conscience. When you have a fully restored conscience, you do not require anyone. You don't require a master, an angel. You don't require anyone to tell you the difference between right and wrong. In fact, as you awaken, you don't even use those terms anymore because you know they're a trap for falling into the belief in good and evil. For you, you know clearly because you can see it. There's that which is constructive and there's that which is destructive. So in this review that I've chosen with you tonight, we are entering soon into autumn, into the next curriculum that has a soulful single purpose, and that is to bring about as much demonstration of the God presence expressing out into your outer lives. It's so real, it's so tangible, and how long do we get into the autumn Do we get into, how long is it going to take? Is it going to take getting into early winter? Before Wednesday class is going to have to be held downstairs in the ballroom. And not because of word of mouth, but because people intuitively are in that place where they connect and say to themselves, I'm supposed to be there tonight. I promise you, it's a guarantee that more and more people will come to these events. They will go to their home. They will feel different the next day because a miracle energy, and that's an increasing energy that you are all carrying, will go home with them, and they will feel the difference. Your messenger received a letter today from a couple in Australia that just returned home from our conclave in Montreal a few weeks ago, saying that conclave, best ever, changed our life. And we know we are different. We're going back to work here in Australia and we feel different. It is so tangible. And it's the energy, the radiation, the vibration you are carrying. And that is what always comes the day before a miracle. Now I'm using a bit of a metaphor here, but before any miracle, tangible, physical, occurs, if you're paying attention, there's the day before. Now that day before may be 10 minutes, but it's an action of energy and vibration and radiation that comes around you, and it is energetically preparing you for a miracle. That energy is so intelligent, it's blending with you to determine, because sometimes a person could use 5 miracles in their life. A miracle in my health, a miracle in my finances, a miracle in my relationships. So sometimes, depending on how big that energy is, that field of miracle energy, it blends with you, and it sees, it determines, it assesses what is the most important thing to be addressed now. Eventually, the radiation that you will all carry will address everything. And so as we march forward into this autumn, with absolute deliberation as you come to classes, we will be doing a combination of things, like we did on the miracle class this past weekend. There'll be a powerful demonstration of projecting that radiation that must come before miracles. And that radiation makes you feel so wonderful. And the other thing that must increase now is going into the treatment, going into the practitioner's treatment, and together, collectively, suspending thoughts. Think about that when you return to your homes. If you have 50 people in a room, and each of them are accessing their God consciousness, and that presence is coming into their outer minds, their feelings, their selves, that's just going to lift the entire energy of the room. And that's just going to go home with you. And that energy is an energy of perfection. When an energy of perfection comes into a field of imperfection, it seems that there's a correcting activity that's occurring. But not really. It's just that you got to, in ways that you can intellectually understand it, you have to think of an appearance of an imperfection as lights out. The light is out in the room, and the presence comes in. Someone turns the lights on. Where did the darkness go? Where did the appearance go? In what moment was the appearance, the disease, the lost limb, the poverty, in what moment did it disappear? I've shared with you many times that hundreds talked about the moment miracles happened in Jesus' ministry. No one ever recorded it. In one moment there was half an arm, and the same moment there was a full arm. Did you see it? Did you see the arm grow? No one. Because miracles don't happen in your time-space continuum. So as long as you are using your sight in your duality time-space continuum, you're not going to register it. This is what's coming for all of you. And you have to build it in your lives, gain great confidence. A week ago, this messenger receives a letter from someone he does not know, who just felt prompted to send a FedExed letter. This person had the promptings and said, "You are this person, and my promptings are just to write you that you will know that you are the founder of what will become one of the most powerful and spiritual organizations in this world." That's from someone that your messenger doesn't even know. God is speaking through this person, and this person is prompted to write this crazy message down and send it in a message and FedEx it. But this is all about you. You are ready, precious hearts. And it doesn't matter if your awakening was 20 years ago, a lifetime ago, or whether your awakening starts tomorrow. Because everyone who awakens in this embodiment has been going at it for several lifetimes. If you are not awakened and you stand next to a person whose consciousness is free, they've awakened. They're carrying the higher vibration. Just standing next to them, all the blessings in their consciousness will just pour into yours. That is why I say, you have a 7,000 strong student body around the world today. Once, and this is what we've been priming you for, fulfill your destiny. There's been lots of sparks of God on this earth. Some people with 0.1% of God carrying in their bodies. Every once in a while you get a healer, a mystic, and maybe they're channeling or expressing maybe 3% of God. Well, it's been 2,000 years since you've had a soul brave enough to make themselves an instrument, until in being an instrument for God, he became one with that presence. That's the destiny. And there are so many lining up upstairs to step in and assist all of you to this great fulfillment. And that's why, precious heart, as difficult as it is, and I know it can be difficult, at some point the story must end. And the real journey of becoming God on earth, which was always your destiny, your God realized, now it's time to be God actualized. That's what stands before you. But if there's any part of you that just loves to lean upon what happened yesterday and what happened 2 years ago and what happened to you when you were a kid, and you just need to keep that story alive, as wonderful or as horrific as it was, in all its imperfection, it was perfect for you, even if it was horrible. Because every piece was building blocks. But at some point, you have to say, at this point of the journey, I'm in. The story is not important. Showing up every day, it's about now and the future. God bless my past. I put my past in my heart. God bless everyone who's ever crossed my path. It's about now and the future. I can't help myself. I can't help others. I can't help this world if I'm still spinning the story of what happened years ago. God bless you. Your future is now coming to you, blessed hearts. I thank you.